Perhaps one of the most recognizable societies in American history, the National Geographic Society, has withstood major industry and cultural shifts to remain viable. To this day, National Geographic magazine remains one of the top 10 most circulated publications in the world. Despite the rapid decline print media that was seen in 2013, National Geographic distributed over 4 million copies of the immediately recognized, distinguishable, yellow-bordered periodical worldwide. Perhaps one of the most recognizable societies in American history, the National Geographic Society, has withstood major industry and cultural shifts to remain viable. To this day, National Geographic magazine remains one of the most circulated publications in the world. Despite the rapid decline of print media that was seen in 2013, the National Geographic still distributed over 4 million copies of the immediately distinguishable yellow-bordered periodical worldwide. We invite you to join us in our band of experienced adventurers, the masters of the business universe, as we explore the evolution of the organizational culture of the National Geographic Society. Crystal for Columbus Souza, Dr. Eliza, I presume, Olaru, Robert Fancy de Leon, Todd Jakic Cousteau Watkins, and Mengel N. Young. In this presentation, we will demonstrate how the National Geographic Society built upon its established heritage and adopted strong traditions to a modern world. In addition to innovative strategies, a strong organizational culture built from a blend of founding and modern values have set the stage for the National Geographic Society to succeed. Founded January 27, 1888, the National Geographic Society has stood the test of time through carrying out mission-based programming, supporting countless science-based adventures, and fueling our curiosity about the universe we live in. To pick up a document to read for enjoyment or personal enrichment was not the easiest to come by in 1888. That was a time that innovation that we may take for granted today, for example, items like a ballpoint pen or a Kodak hand camera, were just being introduced, and magazine popularity was still in its infancy. The world's first magazine was published in 1663 in Germany, yet the National Geographic was still one of the very first 15 leading magazines, and one of which that has distinguishable and good standing within the domain of science, which is still identifiable and recognizable today. The 33 gentlemen who founded the original National Geographic magazine were deeply rooted in their intense interest for scientific publications that showcased stories and revealed images of stunning photographs, lifelike artist rendition drawings, and exposures to never-before-seen peoples, along with a new introduction to species, plants, and animal life, including the ever-famous Up Close and Dangerous Encounters. The original mission of the National Geographic Society was to increase and diffuse geographic knowledge. The current mission is the National Geographic Society was founded in 1888 with a mission to increase and diffuse geographic knowledge as one of the world's largest non-profit scientific and educational organizations. The Society works to inspire people to care about the planet. The first remarkable transition occurred when Gilbert Grosvenor, an editor, joined the National Geographic. His vision changed the National Geographic magazine from one cold geographic fact to a vehicle carrying the living, breathing, human interest truth about this great world of ours. At the time, he was the first person to write in a narrative talking style, and this was introduced along with other features such as black and white photos, the iconic yellow border, and he had also fought The next big significant shift occurred under John Fay. He joined the National Geographic as the head of National Geographic Ventures in 1996 and became CEO 2 years later. He realized that National Geographic needed to reinvent their organizational culture in order to continue their existence into the future. He described at his arrival that National Geographic was a formal, careful, and risk-adverse venture. He also said that it would take forever, despite the facts that the organization had a great deal of history, but its best days were actually behind them. They needed to look to the future and reinvent themselves in order to succeed. The organizational culture of a large global entity like the National Geographic Society must be unambiguous, strong, and immediately evident for it to remain stable across large numbers of employees, across multiple continents, and across multiple cultures. With an original mission to increase and diffuse geographic knowledge, the Society was always firmly rooted in the objective practice of science. The original founders, all accomplished explorers in their own right, traveled the early, unexplored wilderness of America. Their spirit of adventure, coupled with a deep appreciation of the natural beauty of the countryside, imbued in the early society with an enduring sense of stewardship of the natural world. The early society sought to diffuse this geographic knowledge and increase awareness of their finds throughout their first publication of the National Geographic magazine. The National Geographic Society was founded in 1888 with a mission to increase and diffuse geographic knowledge. As one of the world's largest nonprofit scientific and education organizations, the Society works to inspire people to care about the planet. Their prior commitments and other missions on preservation include some of those, such as Diane Fossey with Gorillas in the Mist, with 400 scientific field research, conservation, and exploration projects annually, and they're involved in setting up the national park system. From the beginning, a unique quality was the exceptional photographs taken by the National Geographic photographers. These were tangible flashes in time that can often truly be called once-in-a-lifetime moments. Because a photo can be worth 1,000 words, careful selection of the photographers and shots themselves is a grueling process that is undertaken by the editors of National Geographic. Deep within the organization's culture, their mission shapes their overall values to ensure a shared perception that constitutes their strong, positive organizational culture within the society, and that it is intensely held and widely shared. High dedication to the photography is just one component of the National Geographic Society. However, the selection of images to ensure its ability to captivate an audience is an area that displays this high level of acceptance and their core values and commitment overall. The level of internal climate has remained an essential component across the board. It is the sincere appreciation for the National Geographic and its mission-driven focus that demonstrates the high agreement by employees. The work most notably recognized by the public is that of the effort performed by these photographers, especially of areas of documentation with endangered species, climate change, and exposing events that may have spurred many social moments and historic initiatives. While photographers are a vital component to the National Geographic magazine, all employees play a necessary and very important role to the strength of the National Geographic culture. Employees are driven by what they can accomplish versus the pay. Many employees have a strong academic and scientific background. Employees favor management approaches which emphasize good communication and consensus building rather than approaches that forcibly push changes from top to bottom. National Geographic is driven by ambiguous goals which have a large social impact, and what makes it easier for them to do is to rally employees behind them. They inspire people to care about the planet. Top management priorities are also well aligned with overall goals, with necessary organizational changes that are needed to sustain the growth of the society for the foreseeable future. As with all organizations, there are certain weaknesses, and National Geographic is no exception. Some of the weaknesses noted was that they had poor conflict resolution, and their marketing decisions did not make sense to employees. Employees were also frustrated that managers did not manage up and take care of certain situations as they arose. There was also a low awareness of initiatives and projects which led to overlaps, brand erosion, and the loss of credibility. Also, the lack of a common message to outside parties, members, suppliers, and vendors led to a significant breakdown, which ultimately led to employees feeling displaced. The organizational culture contains assets and liabilities. Asset: employees support the National Geographic's main mission to discover and inspire their audience through the strong focus on the institutionalized mission programs. Liability is the lack of a cohesive internal and external communication that allows a more efficient use of resources that better penetrate the marketplace. The National Geographic Society has earned its place within the industry as one of the world's largest nonprofit scientific and educational organizations. They have expanded gradually over the years from print-only magazine to a wide area of distribution platforms in television, book publishing, film, music, radio, and entertainment in the interactive platforms. National Geographic Society did three things in order to remain competitive. They needed to create, adopt a strategy focused towards widening the presentation of content across as many distribution channels as possible. This is especially important in order to attract younger generations who had gradually moved away from traditional media in print, television, or radio. Develop. They needed to train employees to give them the skills needed that allow them to tackle the challenges and opportunities posed by the transition towards the digital media outlooks. Sustain. The mission program had been the driving force behind National Geographic's competitive advantage. National Geographic continues on to focus not only on exploring and telling a story, but doing so with a purpose. A feature that kept the National Geographic well established was their position and their competitive advantage. This aspect was extremely important to maintain their uniqueness within the industry. They were very proactive to create, develop, and sustain strategies in order to keep them competitive. They adopted strategies to widen their presentation market and also to have information distributed across channels to attract younger generations and to move also from traditional media approaches. They worked with employees and trained them to have skills to tackle these challenges and be well prepared for the new digital age. It is not easy operating a nonprofit in a commercial setting. It is recognized that National Geographic is a pioneer with the use of color photography in a journalistic setting. However, it comes at no surprise that older members proudly save their hard copies of the National Geographic magazine. However, with the advent of television, National Geographic Channel has differentiated itself by offering those things. When the National Geographic Society was founded, there were two mass media technologies: print and sound recordings. Today, there are an additional 5 media technologies: radio, motion pictures, televisions, computers, and the internet. The last two are still ever evolving, almost on a daily basis. Most of all, there is a drive to switch from analog to digital storage formats since it is easier and faster to distribute digital files. The National Geographic is always operating in an industry that is competitive and fast-moving. No longer the prestigious club that it was, they're ever fighting to stay relevant and testing new business models, new media technologies, and adapting to the changing times. The ever-adapting culture of the National Geographic Society continues to be organized by different types of media. The publishing division handles print, and the National Geographic Ventures division manages the TV and digital areas. To better consolidate these strategies, these divisions, in response to the rapid changes of digital media, were created in 2007. The goals of this group was to coordinate various editorial units to define the digital content offerings and ultimately to reduce the divergences between the publishing and National Geographic Ventures divisions. Along with the Global Media Group, a cross-platform event team was also formed in 2008, with the primary objective of this team being that they operate with different bases of media, however, containing the same basic content. This was done in order to promote synergy across all divisions of the National Geographic Society. Maintaining a younger audience is necessary for the ongoing future of the National Geographic Society. 73% of members view their subscription as a magazine subscription only. What is needed in their current strategy is to restructure its organization and to captivate audience across digital platforms that can reach a vast audience. The successful implementation of this strategy will also require that the National Geographic Society continuously adopt new technologies and stay relevant in order to maintain a broad audience base. The National Geographic Society is more than just a magazine with ever-changing and developing lines. They're expanding the brand with cable television channels, National Geographic Kids, maps and GPS, clothing and furniture lines, applications, and digital contents. They have remained true to their mission statement and the integrity of their productions. They avoid diluting the brand even with the ever-growing business and remaining consistent and having a competitive advantage. We hope that you've enjoyed your time with us and that your interest in exploration, expeditions, and journeys throughout the world has been ignited. We also hope that this has led you into the organizational culture of the National Geographic Society. From the immense ocean depth of the Mariana Trench to the highest summit of Mount Everest, and to distances far beyond our galaxies, National Geographic Society aims and encourages you, as well as everyone else, in supporting the mission of the quest of geographic knowledge.